In World War II, the Germans took out a Soviet tank company with just one White Tiger. Under his gun, Soviet T-34s were destroyed one by one. The wreckage of the tanks was everywhere. Smoke filled the battlefield. Many soldiers couldn't escape in time and were burnt by the fire. After completing the ambush, White Tigers are slowly retreating, ready to disappear into the cage. But then a T-34 was rapidly moving through the battlefield. This is the tank driven by Ivan and the others. He chases the White Tiger into the fog, out of the jungle. In front of him is an abandoned farm. Ivan drives the T-34 into the village. They're looking everywhere. Everyone's careful and attentive. Suddenly Ivan stops. He's staring at a barn up ahead. Years of combat experience told him, there's definitely something wrong here. He ordered the gunner to fire a shot at the height of the turret. And sure enough, a tank was forced out. Ivan decides to open fire and destroy it, but it wasn't the one they were looking for. Then Ivan realized something. That tank was just a decoy. Ivan frantically turned around. The White Tiger was behind them. The smoke from the tank was thick, like a roaring lion. The White Tiger was the first to attack. The shells missed the T-34. The T-34 fired back, but it missed. In order to avoid a head-on attack, Ivan immediately drove the T-34 into a nearby wooden house. He used it as a cover. The attack was effective. Shirahikoichi's shells failed to hit him, while the other side was loading shells. They fired quickly and unexpectedly. They hit Shira Tiger's battery. Shirahu City has lost the ability to fight back. They're slowly retreating, hoping they'll catch up with them, but the T-34 got stuck in the mud. The tank's forward-facing barrel was blocked by silt, waiting for them to get out of the mud. When they came out of the mud, they were ready to give the White Tiger a fatal blow. T-34's barrel blew up. They lost their chance to destroy the White Tiger. Ivan, who was not happy about it, rushed down and fired his pistol, but it was all in vain. He watched the White Tiger as it disappeared into the fog. Shortly afterwards, the German military announced its unconditional surrender. The war was over. The White Ghost was never seen again. Everyone was enjoying their victory, but Ivan was overhauling his tanks. He thought that if the White Tiger was not destroyed, the war will never end. He was waiting. Maybe 20, 50 or even 100 years, the White Tiger will come back, and his mission is to defeat it once and for all. The major turned to leave. When he turned round again, Ivan and his tanks had disappeared. This is self-explanatory. What is the White Tiger? It's a symbol of the atrocities and bloodshed of war. As long as this idea of war exists, it's going to come back, no matter how long it takes. World War II. On the Soviet-German battlefield, there was a Tiger tank known as the White Ghost. His aggressiveness and destructiveness, the Soviet army was once terrified. In order to eliminate this big problem, they hid a T-34 in a pre-dug pit, and another tank to be the bait. Everything was ready for the prey to appear. The major didn't know if the modified T-34 could compete with the White Tiger. With a feeling of anxiety, the major could only wait quietly in the woods. I don't know how long it took, but Ivan suddenly raised his head. He heard the roar of a tank. The legendary White Ghost had appeared. The White Tiger's huge muzzle stood tall. And slowly passed in front of the major. He took out his camera to take a picture, but at the crucial moment, the camera didn't work. He could only watch him through the white fog. The decoy tank was hit by a White Tiger. At the same time, Ivan's T-34 is coming out fast, approaching the White Tiger through the grass. He's in the design position, and he's firing at it. But the White Tiger's frontal armor is at least 250 millimeters. It's not going to kill him with that kind of armor. In order to avoid the shelling, Ivan quickly stopped the T-34 behind the scrap tank. The White Tiger turned its gun, started to counterattack frantically. The Tiger fired one shot after another. Ivan had to change his tactics. He quickly backed away from the T-34. He was going to attack underneath the Tiger's turret, but the Tiger knew what he was doing. As Ivan rushes forward, spinning his gun around, looking for a target, the White Tiger is already behind them. The T-34 takes a big hit, but Ivan and the others are unharmed. The soldiers follow the tracks of the Tiger's tracks. The soldiers followed the tracks left by the Tiger's tracks, but the tracks disappeared along the swamp. Everyone thinks he sank into the swamp, but Ivan is convinced he's just hiding, waiting for a new attack, because he could hear the tank talking. They all hoped to destroy the tiger. As absurd as it sounds, it was an unexpected and heartfelt confession. It wasn't long before the decisive battle between the Soviets and the Germans. The battle between the Soviets and the Germans finally began. At the word of command, the earth trembled. The earth trembled. The earth trembled. Tanks rushed to the enemy's position, rushing towards the enemy's position. They were fearless, because it was clear, it's a fight that's not in doubt. One was among them, but he watched carefully, because he always believed that the white tiger was not so easily destroyed. The troops advanced across the battlefield with impunity. The front platoon of tanks rushed through the blockade. The white tiger appeared in the fog. As soon as the Soviet tanks came within range, it was destined to be destroyed. This tankman is almost burnt all over, but he remained in a fighting position. When his comrades saw that he was alive, they rushed him to the field hospital. Doctors examined him and found the man was burned 90% of his body. He also suffered from severe sepsis. The doctors gave him a death notice. They thought he wouldn't live for more than 2 hours. But to everyone's surprise, when the doctors took off the bandages 3 weeks later, they found that his body had already grown new skin. His ability to heal himself was a miracle. Unfortunately, he lost his memory. He doesn't remember anything. The military only found out his name was Ivan. His name was Ivan. There's nothing else. They don't know where he's from. They don't know who his family is. A soldier with such a severe memory loss. It was suggested that he be discharged from the army, but the officer thought, tankers are desperately needed at the front. The loss of memory did not affect his ability to operate. So Ivan got back on the train to the front. Looking at the wreckage of the tanks on the train, Ivan was thinking. The officer in charge of transporting the tanks, he saw Ivan standing by the tank, silent. He asked him what he was doing. Ivan replied that the tank in question was ambushed by a panther. The one behind it was killed by a tiger. It was a white tiger like the one that killed him. The officer was puzzled and asked, "Who told you that?" Ivan replied that it was a tank. The officer looked at Ivan in disbelief. He thought Ivan was out of his mind. He should be sent to a psychiatric hospital, not to the front. But then the colonel said he had heard the legend. It was said that this white tiger always appeared out of the smoke of the battlefield. It caught the Soviets by surprise, but then disappears like a ghost. No one can confirm his existence, but no one can deny it. Later, they learned from German prisoners of war the rumored existence of the white tiger. In order to get rid of this big problem, the Soviets modified a T-34 tank to increase its mobility, thicker armor, and a more powerful cannon. A strong army needs a good general. Ivan, who had been reborn from the ashes, was to be its commander. Soon the rest of the crew was assembled. They were all chosen from amongst the best of the tankers. But this group was not appreciated by the others, because they looked stupid, and the captain had lost his memory. Could such a group fight on the battlefield? So the general wanted to test them. He pointed to a barn in the distance. The gunner immediately gave an answer of 640 meters. Then he told Ivan and his men to destroy the barn, but they were allowed a maximum of 2 shots. But Ivan, in his tank, moved and fired at the same time. He hit the target with 1 shot, and that's the kind of action that shuts people up. A few days later, the army received information that the white tiger appeared near the swamp. They attacked some of our tanks, so the colonel sent Ivan to look for the white tiger. Ivan looked at the holes in the tanks. He looked at the terrain. He thought the white tiger was hiding in the woods, but the soldiers said they had searched every inch of the forest. There was no sign of the tank, but Ivan was still convinced. Then he came up with a plan to bait the enemy. A tank as bait. The T-34s were prepared for an ambush. It was a crazy idea. The major complied with his request.